Hello, I hope that you're well. So, welcome to episode 4 of my podcast. I'm not sure if it's really a proper podcast because I'm not interviewing a bunch of people yet and I'm sort of just doing a lot of talking. But today I wanted to talk about gifts. So this week I have been working on lots and lots of readings for lots of different people. I've had a bit of a backlog. So if I have promised you one, I promise I'm getting to it. But I've had a bit of a backlog. And I've been trying to do really in-depth readings because I feel quite responsible in the sense that I want the readings to be something that is useful and helpful, something that resonates, something that you can do something with. So I'm quite excited to be sharing those with everybody at some point. But in order to be able to do these readings, I've also been doing a lot of preparation because human design has got lots and lots of different layers. So for example, we have our 5 energy types. So that's the manifestor, manifesting generator, the projector, and the reflector. And this tells us how we spend our energy, right? And also the type of energy that we have that makes us up. So that's quite a nice thing to know and understand. And I think when you look at human design, most people say, understanding your energy type is quite important. The other areas are things like your strategy. So this is how you make decisions. So there are lots of different strategies, but you can have, for example, an emotional authority, you can have a sacral authority, a splenic authority, there's just lots of different things. And then you've also got your profile, which is very much like your personality type. So for example, mine is a 4-6, so they're always made up of 2 numbers. The 4 tells me that I'm a people person, that actually the opportunities that I create in the world often comes through my network and the people that I know, which makes complete sense, right? So the times when I kind of want to feel a bit more introverted and I'm not necessarily putting content out into the world and showing up, then normally things slow down for me. And the 6 is about being a role model, sort of like a wise sage, I think it is another way that people often talk about it. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with those terms yet, so I need to think about that. But that's about kind of being able to kind of hold and learn and hold wisdom and to learn and to be able to share that through the way that you live your life. If you've got like a 5 in your profile, then you tend to kind of like experiences. If you've got a 3 in your profile, then you kind of like to also experience things, but you tend to do it through your own personal circumstances. If you have a 1 in your profile, then you tend to want to investigate and figure things out for yourself. It doesn't matter if somebody's sitting there and they're telling you, do it this way. You'll be like, nope, I want to go off and find this out for myself. So you will kind of go and explore. And then if you've got a 2 is kind of like a hermit. So somebody who likes to take time out. They're very independent, know their own mind, but also need to take the time out to kind of have that space to kind of integrate with things that maybe they're experiencing or they're learning or they want to kind of ponder. So then, and so the profile lines are very much kind of like around your personality type. And with human design, your energy type, your authority, so that's how you make decisions, and then your personality type, they all sort of work together to be able to create this wonderful picture for you. And as I've been learning, the one thing that I've realised is that actually that's not enough. And there are lots and lots of layers to human design. It's a bit like an onion. You kind of peel back the first layer, so your energy type, then you're looking at the way that you make decisions, and so you follow your authority, which is great. But then you want to have a look a little bit deeper and have a look at kind of like your profile. And then, when you pull a chart, you get these like funny symbols, they're all planet symbols around your design. And they also tell you things around your purpose, around your values, your relationships, what you're here to master during your time here on Earth. Maybe the theme that's going to follow you about through your life, what grounds you and gives you stability, where you're going to be able to kind of attract your blessings, so your abundance. And, just lots and lots of different things. Also your, what they call your south node and north node. So what you're here to experience before you're 30 and what you're here to experience after you're 30. So it's really, really fascinating. And given the fact that I'm now 45, I look at that particular placement around my chart and I can really see the experiences that I have lived out, and how that's now teaching me and showing me what I'm now living out, in my 40s, and hopefully the path that's to come. So it's quite fascinating. But the bit that I love the most, and I think is my most favourite, is that when you look at a human design chart, amongst the shapes, there are little numbers. And we experience all of the charts, but we all experience all of the chart in different ways. So if you have, for example, numbers that are coloured in, so like say you've got a number, it's got like black around it, then it's defined. It's something you are going to experience as a theme in your life. And if it isn't, then you're likely going to experience that maybe through an energy type, through somebody else, right? And it's the same with the coloured shapes. So you've got 9 different centres within your human design chart. Each one of those represents different parts of your body. So for example, this is quite interesting. I have a defined will. So like I think it's 20% of the population have a defined will. Some people refer to it as ego, but it's actually the will, because the will enables you to create the resources that you need to be able to exist within this time at the moment. And it's, quite persistent. It's very resourceful. It focuses in on things like success and being able to provide for your home, your community, things like that. So it's quite nice. It's a nice center. But I when I'm sort of looking at Alice has just walked in. When I'm looking at kind of the will center and that being defined, it also means that I can be quite stubborn. I'm going to say this now, but it's been really interesting sort of looking at that sort of center, because what then that does is then that tells me, well, depending on what it's connected to within my chart will depend on how I then show up in other areas of my life, right? So for example, my will is actually connected to my spleen, which is very intuitive, and it's intuition that's in as a pulse in the moment. And so that is connected to my will. And it also means that, for example, if I get stressed, or if that connection is also to do with success, right? So if, for example, I'm worried about success, or I'm worried about maybe how things are going in that area of my life, especially around my career, especially around work, especially around purpose, because you question all of that, then what that does is that it can create health issues in my stomach, which is really typical. So during my very stressful years as well, I was younger, I used to have things like IBS. So, really bad stomach pain. And it's because of my defined will and its connection through to my spleen. And it's really interesting just being able to understand that connection and how one kind of impacts the other. Your spleen, for example, as well, if it's defined, then you tend to have a really strong immune system. If it isn't defined, it just means that you're kind of processing the energy in a different way, and you might experience challenges in a different way, especially through your immune system. And that's not to say that, it's going to create illness or something like that. It's just something to be aware of. So now that I know, for example, that, if I'm worrying and getting myself into a bit of a moment about kind of like success or my purpose or what I'm doing with work and things like that, then it makes complete sense why that sometimes that creates like stomach pain. And, it's quite interesting when you kind of learn those associations. The other thing, as what I was actually trying to get around to, is the little numbers on the centre. And they are my most favourite because there are 64 of them. And each one of them holds a gift. And as I have been preparing for all the readings and for everything that I want to be doing, I've basically been creating a massive big grid of what all the gates are and just all my notes, because I can't even tell you how many books. And obviously, I've done spent an awful lot of money on courses and done certifications and things like that. So I have stuff everywhere. And everybody kind of interprets it slightly differently, which is quite interesting. And I've noticed as well there's an inconsistency in language. So some people will call it what the traditional human design names, but they're quite hard and quite aggressive. And then you have like the quantum human design by Karen Curry Parker, who I actually did my certification with. And her language is a lot more softer, I think a lot more inclusive, helps you to understand more in terms of, your place in the world, the power of your story. So it's really quite nice. But then, I'm reading other books and I can see a kind of like something in the middle, and I quite like that variation as well. So at the moment, I think because the person who kind of absorbed human design and brought it into the world is no longer with us because he died, is no longer with us. I think there are lots of people trying to grab it and trying to kind of go, well, I'll own it, it's mine in some ways. And in doing so, they're trying to kind of break down the complexity of human design by using different names and different kind of words to explain different things. So it made me want to create a grid, a big spreadsheet, which I actually have in front of me, to basically make all of my notes so that I can understand each of the different gates and what they mean. I am getting to the point where I can look at a chart and I can see now how things are flowing, and the way that you might express yourself, and also the shadow side of that expression as well, like how you might be able to tie yourself up in knots around certain things as well. But it's really quite interesting. So I've been doing this work, and I'm kind of now into the 30s of the 64 gates as I'm writing down all of the notes. And I actually said to my husband today, it's my most favourite part. I know that it's important to understand the energy types. I know it's important to understand how you should, trust your authority to make decisions. And being aware of your personality lines is really important as well. But I think the gates actually give you the assurance and the comfort that maybe the things that you thought you should be doing all along are actually kind of reaffirmed through the gates, right? At least that's what I'm finding, because as I'm going through it, and I know my charts, right? I've done the work, I've done the analysis on my chart, I've been doing the work, I've been trying to live by my design. Obviously it's a bit of a process, and I'm still uncovering different layers. And it was really funny because my husband walked in this afternoon, and I tapped at one of the numbers on the gates. It was actually gate 19, and I said to him, read this, and he was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I said, well, read gate 1, because gate 1's it's also in my chart. And he said, well, that sounds like you. Do you have that gate? And I was like, yeah, it does. I do have that gate. That made complete sense to us as we were talking about it. And gate 19 for me is a big one because it actually shows up in my purpose. So in my conscious purpose. So my life purpose. And you can imagine that when you suddenly find this number that's kind of like being attached to something like your purpose, your instant reaction to that is try and find the books, try and Google, try and listen to the podcast. Like, what does it mean? Someone's going to tell me what my purpose is. But what I'm coming to realize is that your purpose isn't one thing. Your purpose is your being. And actually, it's the way that you show up in the world, and you show the things that you love and how you represent the things that you love in the way that only you can, right? Because what lights you up might not necessarily light me up, and I might not express something the way that you would express something, right? It's unique to us. That's our individual story. And so it's really quite interesting. And so I did a whole load of work trying well, what does that mean? And, try and understand it. And I've done a lot of contemplation, and it's really interesting because one of the gates that comes up for me is contemplation, and also with my head and my anja, so the head's where the ideas come in, the anja's where you kind of consider those ideas and you research them, right? I have this connection between the two, which also means that my mind is always busy. So when I used to get told off in my earlier years for always being away with the fairies, now it's just an accepted part of me. Yep, I'm away with the fairies because I'm always thinking, I'm always pondering stuff, I'm always contemplating. So it has been such a relief to know that about myself. It has also been kind of interesting because things like the logical side of my brain has been showing up, and I would never have guessed that. I've always thought I was very creative, so I didn't pay heed to the logical side. But as I've been doing more and more work around human design, then my logical side is coming out more and more because it's like a puzzle. I'm trying to kind of fix everything and put it all together so that I can see the big picture, which makes complete sense for the logical side, right, of my brain. So I just wanted really to do this episode more to talk about that. The gates, personally, I think are absolutely fascinating. And I'm really, really excited to be able to kind of teach on this, to share more information about this, to hopefully, have the opportunity to to give you your reading so that you can understand and maybe dive into your gifts. Now, obviously with your gifts as well, you have the essence of the gift. So in its purity, the gift is something, right? It's your contribution to the world. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for. We're all here to make our contribution to the world. And each of us will feel those contributions differently. Some of us will measure that in form as a form of success. So as a projector, I actually, when I'm kind of doing the thing that I'm meant to be doing, that is what I literally feel would be success. It is not icky for me to talk about success and money and business and things like that, because actually my channel definition in my chart is all about business. It's all about community. It's about money and things like that. So it's very normal for me to do that. I have a defined will, as I was saying earlier. So I'm on point when it comes to kind of my self-worth. I know how to price my value. I don't quibble about it. I'm not embarrassed by it. It's going to cost this much for my time. For me to do this type of work, then that's what I'm going to price it. And I trust that process. And I know that's not the case for everybody else, because lots of people, around me who don't necessarily have a defined will question, their value, will question what they should price their goods or their services and things like that. But also, people who do have a defined will, if they're not living it out in its purest sense, they could also be questioning it. So we are very, 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 very complex human beings, wonderful human beings, but complex. And I think what this does is it gives you the freedom to kind of explore who you are. And it enables you to honour the story that you've come here to live and to create. Now, I know for some people that can make you feel a bit uncomfortable, because not everybody, necessarily has faith. Like for example, my husband, he's an atheist, so he really, really hasn't, you can't talk to him about faith at all. I can get into a great debate with him about it, but faith isn't something that he embraces, and that's absolutely fine, which makes it a really interesting relationship. But he is one of my biggest supporters, so that's fine. And it's about allowing him the space to live his story in the way that feels right for him. Yet hilariously for me, I watch him literally manifest things all the time. I literally watch him create his life when he wants something. I watch him actually live out his design in fairly a purist sense. And sometimes I find myself in awe of him, because he's so unaware that he's even doing this stuff. And yet there I am, just sort of studying and working and trying to kind of get it all together so that I can actually show up as how I want to show up in the world. I think what I'm also realising, and I probably have known this all along, is that life is a journey. And all of the experiences that we have in our life are here to show us something. It is true when they say that you wouldn't be given something that you couldn't deal with. And I'm very mindful of saying that, because I know that in the extreme sense of kind of the scale of what those experiences are could be quite harsh for some people. You've got illness, you've got death, you've got loss on one side, and then you've got luck and joy and love on the other side, right? So you've got this extreme sort of scale that we kind of live on as being human. And I think it takes a lot of grace and a lot of understanding and compassion and love to be able to step back from those experiences and try and understand how they've helped to create the person that you are today in your entirety. And this isn't permission for you to kind of beat yourself up to say, well, actually, it's because this bad thing that happened to me means this is why I'm so defensive, and this is why I'm doing this and why I'm that. It's not that. It's to actually just go, well, actually, I understand the imprint it made on me. But the choice whether to hold that imprint, the choice whether to kind of live your life through the lens of that imprint is only ever yours. You're the only person who can ever decide if you want to do something like that. And how you live your life is also completely up to you. So I think the beauty of human design, because I've been trying to think about how I want to describe this, and I think the beauty of human design is that it gives us the permission to embrace the story of our life. And it gives us a lens to be able to look at our life in hindsight, and hopefully, as we're looking forward, and be able to look at it in a way that kind of makes sense to us, right? That helps us understand the journey that we are going on. And then in doing so, we're then able to help others around us. Now, some people are going to do that on a grand scale. You know, they're going to be the big speakers of the world. They're going to be the people that have the big communities. You know, they're going to be the Stephen Bartletts of the world, for example. And then there'll be those who will do it in their community that's local, or in their home, with their children, with their family. You know, you have a piece of your world that you want to step into, that you're going to always be the greatest influencer for. And I think realizing that has brought me such peace. So I just really wanted to share that with you today. I hope, you know, it's interesting. It's something I've really am passionate about. I'm driving everyone around me potty. But I'm also noticing a huge sense of peace that I'm kind of developing as I go through this process. And part of me wants to push against this and get it out as quickly as I can and start helping everybody. But I also know if I don't do the preparation that I'm doing now, I won't be ready and I will burn out quite quickly. Because as a projector, for example, the way that I spend my energy is in bursts. And I know that because when I have a burst of energy, whoosh, I've gone, I'll get so much done. And I've always had this my whole life, where people just look at me and go, how on earth have you done all of that in that amount of time? But then what they don't know is that I'll sleep for the rest of the day, or I'll just, you know, read a book. Because that's it, I've spent my energy and I now need to go and fill up my cup. So, you know, and it's been a relief knowing that, right? Because it doesn't mean, you know, I'm lazy. It doesn't mean that, you know, I've got to push myself to kind of be somebody I'm not. I'm very happy honouring the person that I am, as long as I step into my role, right? I step into the role, I step into the role of being able to represent my purpose. And I think that's really, really important. I'm still not 300% clear on what that is. I'm still figuring that out, but I have an idea now. And it was interesting, I actually unblocked a bunch of stuff this afternoon when I had an aha moment in doing this work. So yeah, it's exciting and I'm really excited to share it with you. If you've got any questions or comments, or if anything resonates, just please pop it, you know, down below. I've had a few people asking me where you can get your charts from. So you can literally Google like a human design chart, and lots of sites are doing them for free. So feel free to do that. You'll get like a little brief outline of it. Some people will charge you to help you understand what each part is, or you may have to pay a little bit of money to do it. But what I am saying though is if you can just be patient with me a little bit longer, then the site will be up and you should be able to pull some reports that are going to be helpful and useful for you. And then we can get going and trying to kind of like unpack all of this. And especially in the context of business as well. So life and business, both together, super important. But I think understanding it within business and giving yourself the permission to build the business that is right for you and your gifts is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself and for everybody else. So I will say goodbye now. But as I said before, if you've got any questions or comments, please pop them down below. I really love to hear from everybody, and do subscribe as well, you know, because I'm sort of putting this video out on all my channels. It just saves me from doing that because you'll get notified. So I wish you an amazing rest of the evening and day and week and everything. And I will speak to you all very soon. Take care. Bye.